Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again, where today we're going to be making something called taco stuff in a skillet. And I'm sure that's not the original name, but I've changed up the recipe enough, making better choices the way we make it, that I just made up my own name. And I couldn't come up with anything better than taco stuff in a skillet. So you could use a lot of shortcuts in this recipe. I would encourage you not to. I would encourage you to make it the way I make it, because that's better choices. I'm sure this started out as a recipe in an advertisement for a very popular soup company, but the soup was just way too sweet. We couldn't do that again. It pretty much ruined it for me, but I changed things up a little bit, and it's fabulous. So go with us as we make homemade corn tortillas, and then we use those in our casserole. So taco stuff in a skillet. Let's go. Okay, we have our masa and hot water combined here that's made this dough, and a little bit of salt. We had salt in this. I'm hoping this is the right texture. You can always add more water or more masa to it to get the right texture. You want it to be about like Play-Doh. If you've played in Play-Doh, you know what I'm talking about. All right, I want to show you what this looks like. You may find a different brand somewhere, but this is what masa will look like. It's basically nixtamalized yellow ground corn, and the nixtamalization is what makes it different than just regular cornmeal. So the nixtamalization means it's had lye added to it, which has several benefits. Apparently, the Native Americans that used this first had the benefit over people who were just using regular cornmeal to make things like cornbread and corn, whatever you make with it. But they were staving off some diseases. And then it was discovered it was the adding of the lye to it that gave it that benefit. So this is just simply a zip top bag. Now you can cut 3 sides of it. I just happen to cut 2 sides of it. And you want to kind of put it in the center. I'm using just a cookie dough scoop. You can just grab some of it, roll it into a little ball. And this is my tortilla press. Now this is good for corn tortillas, not for flour tortillas. Flour tortillas, you can press them down. They might stay. Good luck with that. Mine always just go back to the original size. That's why I use a rolling pin for mine. But this is made out of a heavy metal. So just press down gently, and it goes like that. So I'm going to turn my burner on over here. I've not had it preheated. I wanted to show you what that looked like first of all. But we're going to heat this up a while. And it's best if you'll take it directly out of this zip top bag and place it on the skillet. My skillet's not preheated, so I'm just going to wait a while. But this is how I get it out. Pull the top of it up and then flip the bag over and peel the bag off the tortilla into your hand, just like that. Now, it's fragile enough where it's going to fall apart if I mess with it much, but you can see it's flexible and it's not coming apart. So we're going to fry this up as soon as the skillet heats up. All right, so while I was preheating the skillet, I went ahead and made these scoops of corn tortilla dough, so I don't have to just keep using my cookie dough scoop. Okay, I'm going to put this in our hot skillet. And we have our tortilla holder. I have parchment in this just because I don't want my tortillas touching the plastic. But normally I just kind of go back and forth with making one of these. And turn it in the skillet. Notice I have a cloth underneath this because if you let go of this handle and it hits the countertop, you might get a cracked countertop, but at best it's just going to make a loud noise. So I just put mine on a cloth to keep it from doing that. Now these are not going to be used for tacos, so they don't necessarily have to be round, they don't have to be pretty, they're just going to be cut up for this particular dish. So if you want to use a bigger cookie dough scoop, making bigger tortillas, that's perfectly fine. Depends on what you're going to use them for. But trust me, when somebody tries one of your homemade tortillas, they're probably going to get that big-eyed look and go, "Did you make these?" Because that's what happens at my house. And I'm not trying to be special by just making them, but it's just hard to find organic tortillas around here. You can get the regular kind, conventional ones all day long at the store in big giant stacks. We have a pretty good Hispanic community that has there's a big Hispanic section of food at our local stores, and which includes those big giant stacks of tortillas, but those are not organic, and I'd rather have the organic ones. So plop that one in there. And we just keep making these like a well-oiled machine. But once you try homemade ones, you likely won't have a taste for conventional ones anymore because they just don't taste a lot like anything. Once the hot water hits these, it just has this aroma of fresh corn come up in your face. It's just delightful. If you tear one of these while taking the bag off of it, taking this bag right here off of it, it's not a big deal. Just shape it back into a ball. And this skillet had some grease in it because I made something in it the other day. I can't remember what it was. And it had a little bit of grease in it. But you don't have to have grease in your skillet. These are going to be just fine. Believe it or not, they really don't stick that bad. Cast iron skillet is ideal for this. If you just have a non-stick ceramic skillet, not Teflon, try to get away from using that if you can. It's not good to breathe the air that it puts off, and we don't know but what it goes in the food, and that's not something we want either. We're making better choices, and that's just one of them. I wonder if I can fit two of these in here side by side. Hey, look at that. Let that cook just a little while longer. If you have kids that like to mess around in the kitchen and help you, this is something good to have them do, because it really does look like you've done something really, really special when all it is just flattening it out. Now, if you don't have a tortilla press, if you have two flat surfaces, whether it's a a baking dish or plates that are completely flat, or if it's a cookie sheet and you need to be sure and know that you're going to be putting some pressure down on it to flatten it out. But whatever you have that's flat will work with these. You can tell when these are done because they get a little bit darker, a little bit more transparent, and you know that they're cooked all the way through. They smell so good. You can even do these on a hot grill if you have a skillet to put on your grill. It'd be ideal to make these outside, especially on a day like today because it's pretty warm out there. Oops, I tore that one. And that is okay. This is why you want to put it in the center of the bag, because otherwise you get a straight edge right here from it touching on this edge. It couldn't go any further if you need them to be round. If it's going to take you a long time to make these, to roll these out, be sure and keep your shower cap thing or a cover over this bowl to keep them from drying out. They dry out pretty good, or pretty quickly, I should say. Not necessarily pretty good. That's not a good thing. You don't want to turn your burner up too awfully high. I only have mine on 2. So I turn it up higher to preheat the skillet, but then I turn it down immediately because it can get to smoking pretty good. But you just want to kind of cook them, I would say low and slow, as opposed to just put them on there and let them catch on fire. Okay, 2 more to go. Okay, last one in the bowl. If you have an edge that's a little thin, that's the side that's going to be more prone to sticking to the bag. So if you have the option, grab the thick side to let it come off first. You can press these little bits back into the round shape. All right, that's all the rest went in the skillet. Our next step, we are going to make a homemade version of tomato soup. Now, don't think, oh, I'll just use tomato soup in this recipe. Please don't. It just tastes like pure sugar. I'm not even kidding when I say it practically ruins the dessert, or not the dessert, the meal when you use tomato soup in this. I think the original recipe probably called for that, but I'm telling you, it was not a good idea. I changed it up and found a better version that's not so sweet. If you know what I'm talking about when I say the canned tomato soup tastes very sweet, then you know where I'm going with this. So this has, it has no sugar in it, but it's a homemade version, super easy to make, so stick around and we'll make that next. Okay, we're going to the back burner on a smaller pan, or in a smaller pan. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of olive oil in there. You want to set your burner to like a medium-low. We are going to add to that a tablespoon of onion and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic. So a tablespoon of onion. And a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic. We're going to let that saute until the onion turns clear. We're also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Which sounds like a lot, but really when you're talking about seasoning an entire casserole, it's not that much. Should have had my pan heating up long before I turned the camera on. But I didn't. Alright, so I've moved the skillet back over here and I'm cooking something else on this burner. I've got a pound of grass-fed ground beef going in this skillet, cooking it. And our onions have pretty much caramelized in there. And they've gotten clear, of course, and that's what we're wanting. So to this, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of dried basil. Hopefully you can see that without so much glare. Sorry about the glare. We're over here at the stove top and it's just not ideal. This is 8 ounces of tomato sauce. Now this is tomato sauce that does not have sugar in it. Check your label, and if you're trying to steer clear of unnecessary processed sugar, then just find one that doesn't have it in it. This is organic. No sugar in there. You grow up eating canned tomato soup and you remember it tasting like more of a dessert than what a soup should taste like. You steer clear of everything sweet that could possibly make it taste like that. It was not my favorite. I remember people saying, oh, I put Cheez-Its in my tomato soup and it's so good. I'm thinking, you could not put enough Cheez-Its in canned tomato soup to make it taste good to me. Sorry. But sometimes that's what we had to eat, and we ate it anyway. I didn't like it, but I ate it. But then I didn't really know you could make tomato soup that tasted like a tomato instead of like candy. Put that in there and let that heat up just a bit. And then we're going to add 3 ounces of tomato paste. And this is just out of a can. I opened this can and took half of the ingredients out. This is a 6-ounce can of tomato paste, so I took half of it out. I'm going to add that to it. This is going to give it some thickening too. Tomato paste is a really good thickener. I don't know if you know that or not, and I didn't know it until just a few years ago, but when I added it to something, I thought, wow, that really changed it. So when you put something concentrated in something, it's kind of like, I need some water, and it sucks up all the moisture from whatever you're cooking. Makes it thicker. So it's kind of like magic. More like a trick, I guess. And we'll just heat that up. I like that caramelization on ground beef, but I just don't like the big chunks in there, but I like to get that sear on it, like that part right there. Okay, last thing we're going to do to this, our tomato soup that we're making, is add half cup of milk to it. And you'll probably look at this and go, oh, that looks just like canned tomato soup. Looks like it, but I'm here to tell you, it tastes, I started to say it tastes 100 times better. It tastes actually nothing like canned stuff, because the canned stuff is just so bad. Just so sweet. I'm not sure who had the idea of, hey, sugar would make a tomato taste better. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. But this stuff actually tastes good. And you can make this by itself and skip this part. You'd have a good bowl of soup right there. Okay, I'm going to turn that burner off, because really and truly the only reason you needed to cook it that much was to soften the onions in it. So we'll turn that burner off and turn our attention to this one. I'm debating on whether or not I should cook it or serve it. I actually store it. We're not having this until tomorrow at lunch. We'll come in after church and have this, but I'm debating on whether or not I should leave it in this skillet and heat it up in that, serve it from that, or put it in a casserole dish. And it really doesn't matter as far as the flavor. Just in my mind, I'm thinking, what could I do? But I think I might put it in a casserole dish simply because it'll help it cool down quicker to store in the refrigerator. Then I can just pop it in the oven tomorrow to heat it up. But if you're going to serve this immediately, by all means, serve it from the iron skillet. That's the way we've always done it. I don't think I've ever made it ahead of time to serve the next day, but today's just one of those days. All right, I'm going to run out to the garage refrigerator and get the sour cream, and I'll be right back. All right, to this we're going to add salsa. We're going to add sour cream. Here's the sour cream I use. And I just made this jar of salsa, and we will put a link in the description for the video on how to make salsa. Sometimes I make it in the Vitamix and it turns out super smooth, but I did this in my just Cuisinart food processor, just plain old kind that you can get at I don't know that our big store sells them, but like, well, I'm sure you can buy one on Amazon. I have a big giant Cuisinart food processor. When our house burned a few years ago, I had a smaller one, and when you have an opportunity to buy something else, if you have the opportunity, normally you upsize it or upgrade it, and I upsized mine. I think mine holds 14 cups. But it is a fabulous, fabulous food processor. If I don't want it liquefied like the Vitamix does, which is a fabulous blender, then you use the food processor. But you could also chop stuff up by hand. So salsa's easy to make. All right, here we go. We are going to add our soup to this. If you want to drain your ground beef once you cook it, that's totally up to you. Mine's grass-fed beef. I'm certainly not afraid of the fat in that, so I tend to leave it in there. And there wasn't a whole lot produced in this one. If I had a higher fat content, I guess I might take some of it out, but I didn't in this instance. Okay, we also are going to use a half cup of sour cream. And I'm going to turn my burner off at this point because I kind of want it to start cooling down if it can. I'm going to put it in a casserole dish. Again, we're serving this tomorrow, not today, or otherwise I would let it keep getting hot and be ready to serve it then. Of course, it starts bubbling as soon as I say I'm turning the burner down. Scoot it off the burner halfway. We're going to need a half cup of salsa. And I say thick salsa because I'm not talking about the runny kind. We're also going to put a half cup of water in this, and I know you're probably thinking, that doesn't look like it needs any water, but the reason we put the water in is because the tortillas tend to soak up a lot of moisture, and you're going to wind up with something super dry, and it's not going to be very appealing, so I'm just using one of the cups I had tomato sauce in. Alright, got my kitchen shears out here, and we are going to cut our tortillas up into smaller pieces. Now this says, my recipe that I actually wrote, says we need 6 corn tortillas cut into 1-inch pieces. I need more than 6 of this. I'm probably going to use at least 8, possibly 10. And so we're just going to cut these like this. My kitchen shears are clean because they're just used for kitchen stuff. And you could leave them in strips if you wanted to. It's just easier to serve if you have them in chunks. All right, let me stir this up a bit. We'll add some more to it. Now once I get my tortillas in here, I think that's when I'm going to transfer it to a casserole dish. And then we will top it with cheese. And that's basically all there is to it. And I say all there is to it, but you may be thinking, I am not going to make tomato soup and I'm not going to make homemade tortillas. That's fine. That's totally up to you. But I will tell you, it has a different taste to it if you use canned soup. But if you can find a soup that doesn't have all the sugar in it and makes tomato soup so sweet, then that would probably taste similar. Okay, 2 more tortillas. Let's see what that does to it. I think that works fine. Okay. We have a few tortillas left over. We'll find something to do with that, won't we? All right, I'm going to find a casserole dish. All right, I'll turn this around. You can see what I'm doing. Skillets get so heavy once you get food in them, I just can't hold it with my hand. All right, just make sure your tortillas are kind of distributed evenly throughout that. And I grated cheese a while ago. So we're going to sprinkle the cheese over the top. And this is extra sharp cheddar. You can use medium, you can use sharp. I just prefer extra sharp. It just gives it a little more zing. Okay, so that, actually this could be called taco stuff in a casserole dish. It's not taco stuff in a skillet, but normally it is in a skillet, and that's why I call it taco stuff in a skillet. Okay, that's all there is to it. Then we just pop it in the oven when we're ready to bake it and heat it till it's warm throughout and serve it. So hopefully I'll remember to take a picture of this or piece of video tomorrow when we serve this, and you can check it out.